order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Hope.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Hodge. Jacobs. Larrabee.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Okay, so approve the order of business. We have a couple of additions. Joe, do you want to explain that?
Yes, Mayor. We received in the pricing for the cemetery road repairs in the city campground parking area. City road repairs for Sacramento to do that paving is a grand total of $52,934.47. And the Sacramento paving for the campground parking areas is $24,923.24. Due to the nature of the timing and everything, I'm asking to have these considered tonight and move forward with those.
Okay. And so we're going to put those under Public Works at the end of the Public Works section. Okay? Any other additions or changes?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 9 items.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion on those? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So items from visitors. Tonight I'm going to proclaim that October 2016 is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And Chris, did you have anything you wanted to share beforehand?
Just a thank you to the community of Spearfish for the number of employers that we have. We have a number of crews from Northern Hills Training Center, 6 crews that are working, and then also individuals at individual businesses. And a couple of representatives tonight for the proclamation.
Okay, so I'm going to read the proclamation, then we'll do a picture. How about that? All right. That's why you're here, right, Eric? Yeah. Whereas workplaces welcoming of the talents of all people, including people with disabilities, are a critical part of our efforts to build an inclusive community and strong economy. Whereas in this spirit, the City of Spearfish is recognizing National Disability Employment Awareness Month this October to raise awareness about disability employment issues and celebrate the many and varied contributions of people with disabilities. Whereas activities during this month will reinforce the value and talent people with disabilities add to our workplaces and communities and affirm Spearfish's commitment to an inclusive community. Now therefore, I, Mayor Dana Boak, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and in doing so, I call upon employers, schools, and other community organizations in Spearfish to observe this month with appropriate programs and activities and to advance its important message that people with disabilities are equal to the task throughout the year. So dated the 17th day of October, 2016. So thank you for all you do, and I think Spearfish really is inclusive in this area, and the Northern Hills Training Center and has built that culture. And so we're very thankful to have them as part of our community also. So you want to come up and get a picture, Eric? And who's your friend? I don't think we've met. Yep.
And don't forget our chili feed tomorrow night. From 5 until 7 in the city park.
Are you coming up, Chris? Are you sure? There you go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Next, item B, we have Sue Constant with Pace Strategic Development LLC to present the Spearfish Strategic Planning Update to the council.
Hi, good
Hi, Sue.
evening. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Bolt, city council members, staff, as well as community. I'm here tonight to give you an update with the strategic planning process. I do have a PowerPoint, so if you want to refer to the screens, you can look at that. Also, you do have a hard copy of the report itself. So my purpose here this evening is not to ask for any approval for anything, but it is to review the timeline and the approach, take a look at some of those foundation elements, make sure that we take a look at some of the general process for the reviews, also take a look at the implementation status, the next steps, and then we will have a time for some questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So starting off at the starting line, the very beginning of our process, back in, I believe it was April of 2015, we went through a series of discovery, assessments, taking a look at what the goals will be, what the community pillars will be, and now we are actually in a state of implementation and review. You did approve the strategic plan back in March, and so we had our first review session just a few weeks ago. Just to circle back a little bit of what the vision is, because these are the foundation elements of the strategic plan. Remember who we strive to be, that is our preferred future. We want to take a look at what is the beacon of light that we are trying to sail towards. So we always want to keep in mind of what the vision of the community is. You also established your values. Those are the touchstones, those 5 values that will guide your beliefs for decision making. You also identify what your mission is. What do you do? What is your livability pledge? What is the purpose of the community? And I do want to read the pledge because it is significant. To serve the community by enriching the quality of life through excellence in stewardship, strategic leadership, and civic engagement. And then, of course, how are we going to get there? You laid out 5 community pillars and 18, which is significant, of the focus areas. Those are basically the objectives under each one of the community pillars. I do want to direct you as a council to the report, and I'll refer a couple of things to different pages in the report. As far as the public and the community, if you want to take a look at the report, you can go online to the website of the city, and I believe it's the administrator's page. If you want a page down, there is a tab that says reports and presentations, and you can take a look at the report there. So I'm not going to include every single bullet point that's in the report on the PowerPoint. So as far as the quarterly review process, just some key items and stakeholders that are involved in the review process. Of course, the steering committee, they are the force behind the review systems. Each one of these stakeholders did have some pre-work to do before the review sessions. They actually were emailed key assumptions, I guess we could call it a template, for them to do a little bit of homework before the review session, and I'll explain what the key assumptions are here in just a little bit. Then the city leads, that's what I call the leadership people who are in charge of each one of the focus areas, because just explaining that process a little bit, remember we have the 5 community pillars, then we have the 18 focus areas. Well, we need somebody to be the leadership under each one of those focus areas. So those people received a template for each one of those focus areas as a progress report outline for them to complete. Then they actually completed that, emailed it back to Carla, and then Carla emailed it to me. So then I could compile all of that data and then put it into a packet, what I call the dashboard, for the steering committee to take a look at, review, and assess that as well. And of course, as the facilitator, then I have to produce that and make sure that the community stays informed and engaged with those reports. So some of the highlights, one of the most, I think, exciting things of our quarterly review sessions is first just to have an open conversation about what are some of the successes that you see the community or the city staff enjoying from the strategic plan or the strategic planning process. And I didn't want to put everything on one slide, but it is a culmination of these 3 slides of what the successes look like. And I think it's important that we verbalize these successes. So I do want to go through these so the public can see these as well. So these measurables, kind of descriptive measurables, are providing the foundation for the community's direction. So far, you have seen that you have improved your outreach systems to your citizenry. You have increased your community engagement opportunities. You have improved your quality of life brand, increased the collaboration among the stakeholders to achieve the goals. Remember that when we first established the strategic plan, you guys were very intentional about making this a community strategic plan, not just the cities. Of course, you want to utilize the plan as a work plan for the city staff. The steering committee expressed that they are utilizing the plan as a tool for budget stability. It has validated the need for various assessments. You have improved systems and adopted policies to ensure equity. You have assisted city council and staff leadership in the decision-making processes, improved operational efficiencies, empowered city staff, leveraged resources, and I highlighted and bolded this last one because you have provided a proactive, narrowed down focus on the priorities that meet the needs of the community. So in the dashboard, we had two sections that the steering committee needed to work on, the key assumptions, as well as what I call the progress status at a glance, taking a look at the status and the trends of those community pillars. So the first thing, and it is on page 2 of your report in your packets that you have tonight. So what are key assumptions? They're really the list of the key indicators, basically the internal and external factors that might influence the plan. So instead of going through the whole SWOT analysis and those other assessments, this is going to be an ongoing assessment tool for the steering committee to take a look at as well as the council. So they identified 16 different key assumption categories, and they developed some baseline levels. You know, are they stable? Is it strong? Is it weak? And I didn't put the 16 categories up here, but it's just some examples. What is the state of the general economy? What is the state of the citizens' economy? What is the state of the community's workforce? So some of those categories are what we'll be taking a look at. And of course, assessing these at each of the review systems, because we know that if one of these key indicators has a major fluctuation, that the strategies and the action steps are going to need to be amended. So the progress status at a glance, you have a couple of pages there, pages 3 through 5. It's exciting to report that of all 5 community pillars, that all of those have action steps and strategies that are being executed. Out of the 18 focus areas, 16 of those are activated. Currently, 40 action steps are in progress, and some of the baseline action steps have actually been completed. Several of those items will remain ongoing. During our review session, a number of the steering committee people or staff expressed that they have already identified numerous action steps that will be launched in 2017. And I took just a little peek at Joe's spreadsheet, and I saw action steps for 2018 and 20 that have already been identified. So as far as the next steps for the different stakeholders, obviously as the city administrator, Joe is the manager, the coordinator, the tracker, kind of the internal assessor for the action plans and for the measurable outcomes. The city leads for each one of those focus areas. Those are the shepherds for the action plans, the action steps. They support the implementation tactics. So if some of the different departments and collaborators are having trouble, they are the support systems for those action steps. They will report the progress, fill out those progress reports for each quarterly and annual review session. And of course, we want to make sure that we're transparent and accountable. So that's why we have those city leads. And it's also important to note that some of those city leads are on more than just one of those focus areas. Some of them are managing 2 to 3 to 4 of those 18 focus areas. As far as the staff and the strategic partners, continuing the collaboration for the implementation of those action steps. Staff will obviously be outlining those progress of the action steps in their annual department reports that you will see in January and February. The steering committee, of course, they are charged by you guys, identified as the leaders within the community to assess and make the recommendations as we review each of those focus areas. The council and community, utilizing the framework, staying engaged, participating in leadership opportunities. And of course, me as the facilitator, I will be here to support, inspire, and challenge you guys for strategic plan success. The plan itself, we want to make sure that it's fluid. It's not going to be static. We need to change, of course, with those key assumptions in case they change. But it is a tool. And in our review session, we heard the word tool an awful lot. But it's also a resource for you as a council and community during your decision-making processes. It's a balanced growth and economic development guide. It's a community engagement and lifelong learning and leadership incentive. It's an integrated framework with existing plans and annual department goals. We have a lot of plans that are currently in place within the city as well as the community, so we want to make sure that everybody is working together. It's a budgetary path for the community sustainability. And of course, it's the pledge of the community to foster our most cherished attribute, which is quality of life. So just some final comments from me. The integrity of the plan is very much on target. I appreciate the professionalism, the high-level professionalism, the high standards that everybody is setting, everybody from the steering committee to the collaborators, the steering committee, community leaders that are taking their time out of their workday to be a part of the process. My overall assessment is that it's strong and positive. You're 5 for 5 in your community pillars, you're 16 for 18 in your focus areas, and you have 40 strategies going. And you've only been engaged in this since March. Pretty exciting. So our next review session is March 16th of 2017. And of course, we will make sure that we write a report and present at that time. So I would invite some comments from the steering committee people, staff, or council members at this time, or if you have any questions.
No, I think the document is coming along. You've noticed that I've utilized it in a lot of our conversations as we've been moving into some of these topics and everything. So the involvement from the community is it can't be replaced. All that information is so good for the operation of that. Sue is a good taskmaster. And
No, that's not what she said. She said she challenges for
Right.
success. I wrote
Right.
that down.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes, and she does a very good job of it.
She does, and it's, and so I see this thing as it continues to evolve and continue to be implemented, it's going to become a very effective tool for us.
And again, I want to thank the staff for all of the time and energy put into it, because there's a lot.
It's
behind
above
the
and
scenes.
beyond.
It is above and beyond, and they do a great job. So thank you very much, Sue, for keeping us on task.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. Any other questions for Sue? Okay. Next, we have the airport planning update. We have Rod Sen with KLJ here to provide a report on the current airport planning. Big guy.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and staff. I really didn't prepare a presentation for you, I just kind of give a little background.
So Rod, can you turn the microphone? You're taller than most, so there you go.
And then I just wanted to have a question and answer for you, basically, is what I was going to look at. What I did in your package is I just gave you a couple of pages of what's referred to as an airport layout plan. Back in fall of 2014, the airport entered into a grant agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration to do what was referred to as an airport master plan update and an airport layout plan. Those are routine guiding documents that the FAA uses for airports. They're done anywhere on a base intervals of 5 to 20 years. 5 years being like your Sioux Falls and your Rapid Cities with the commercial service and so forth, and going on up. The last one was approved for Black Hills Airport in the early 2000s. So we were hitting that time frame of about 10 years old where it was time. That was brought to the forefront with the wants of the Crosswind Runway that's been proposed and the land acquisition, and that's where this document basically started. The document's gone through several iterations of layouts. It was approved by the County Airport Board back in late 2015. The documents were then processed, and the draft versions of the airport master plan, the airport layout plan were submitted to the FAA in May of 2016. There have been no movement on those documents as far as review process. The FAA office that we deal with is located in Bismarck. They covered both the North and South Dakotas. The priority in the summer is grant issuance. Their fiscal year ends in September. They go in the federal year. So come August and September, they spent the bulk of their time on the issuance of grants for the year. Hopefully the review process gets kicked in here again. I would hope that Spearfish, with the things you have going on, will be near the top of their list for reviews. I know in the past that we've been very good about making a push to bring those to the forefront. And that's where we're at. We have no comments back. The one comment we did have was on what they referred to as an Exhibit A, and that's the ownership map. We did revise one for them, and that was resubmitted back in August, so they do have that. I think that was one of the final documents also for you to take over the sponsorship. So those are complete. We're just in their hands right now. Any questions along those lines, or else, Joe, what I was going to do is maybe talk a little bit about funding.
That was going to be what I was just going to say. On page 4, it talks about funding there. If you could go over that, that would be great.
Yep. What you got in front of you basically is a document that was prepared last year by the County Airport Board. It's been moved forward 1 year. Annually in November and December, the FAA goes through what they call a validation process. The validation process is basically for you to put a good faith effort at that point in time, what you see happening at your airport in the next 3 years. And again, airports such as Black Hills Airport are eligible for what's referred to as $150,000 a year of entitlement funding. Basically, all general aviation airports receive that $150,000 right now under their program if you're in the National Air System. The next step up requires commercial service, and that's how you get to the next level of funding. You can build those funds up for 4 years. At the end of the 4th year, if you don't use the funds, what will happen is they'll get transferred in the state of South Dakota. The Office of Aeronautics will come to you as a sponsor and say, will you please transfer your funds to someone else? If you don't retain that money. $450,000 will stay in what I'll refer to as a checkbook for you. But then the $150,000 would go back to the federal government, to the FAA, to disperse someplace else. So normally in South Dakota, we like to keep the money in South Dakota, so most of the sponsors will agree to it. The State Office of Aeronautics, Air Rail and Transit, keeps track of those funds, and they will, whoever gives funds, they try to get money back to them. Your second portion, or eligible monies, is what's referred to as state apportionments. The state gets a little over $3 million a year to use at airports in the system as they see fit and proper for that year. So you'll compete with all the other airports in the state to get a piece of that money. The final pot of money through the FAA is referred to as discretionary funding. The discretionary funding is solely at their discretion. It's basically how the Black Hills Airport got to where it is today. The runway and the taxiway were all built with discretionary money with a little bit of entitlement funding. The FAA funds 90% of the project right now. That is subject to change whenever they reauthorize their bill. Right now, the state of South Dakota, through the Office of Air Rail and Transit, is providing 5% funding, and the local sponsor is providing 5% share. The state share is subject to change. They do foresee some challenges in their trust fund, but for now, they're holding pat at the 5%. It has fluctuated in the past. It's gone 6% state. It's dropped down to 5%. At one point, they were predicting it may go down to a state share of 3 or 4. It hasn't so far. It's held its own. So what you had in front of you here was this is basically what the county airport board approved last year, shifted back 1 year because the planning has not been approved by the FAA. So the next step in the Crosswind and the land acquisition would be an environmental assessment. any project such as the building of a runway or the acquisition of land requires an environmental assessment through the FAA. So we showed that being funded in 2017. In 2018, we anticipated the environmental assessment being complete, and then we would go into a design and then seek reimbursement for the land that was acquired if that was the desires of the sponsor. Again, you may or may not want to put all of that land designated as airport property, because once you do, all the rules and regulations that go with airport property go with that land. So it kind of limits you on what you can use some of that land for. But that would be a choice that you can make later. And then we showed in 2019 the construction of the Crosswind runway. And again, heavily reliant on discretionary funding out of the FAA. They do have this document as a preliminary document right now. They have their, and Joe, I don't know if you've been contacted, they have what they've referred to as a fall workshop. It's November 2nd and 3rd.
I'm not sure if I got that.
Just remind me and I can email you something tomorrow. They will be talking about some changes they're going to make to the validation process at that conference, I understand. And then they will want this good faith effort commitment in December. The next step beyond that would be sometime next spring, summer, where there would actually be a grant application and then a grant issuance, generally happening in late July, August, early September. It's a pretty quick overview. Joe, you want me to touch on anything else?
Rod, on this last two columns, the NPIAS, can you explain a little bit about what these items are?
Those are just items. What they're looking for is what they use the documents from all airports is to demonstrate the need to keep the program for the national airport system up, keep money in the coffers. And they want you to look at 1 to 5 years and then beyond 5 years as to what may happen at your airport. And again, they're just wanting, they use those primarily just to say the need's going to be out there for funding in the future. This is what we need to keep our program working for.
So these are possible programs in these last two columns to be aware of. And as you notice what the listing is on it, there's some T-hangers, some aprons, wildlife fence, and improvement rehabilitation. So they try to do that through the 1 to 5 years and the 6 through 10 as well too.
And the document is fluid. There's airports that change on an annual basis. You know, members of the government body change. Something happens at the airport that causes a change. So it is a fluid document that can be changed on an annual basis.
Ron, trying to learn this. I noticed in 2017 you got an entitlement of 150, 2018 of 150, and then all of a sudden in 2019 there's an entitlement of 225,000. Why is there a difference there?
Those are anticipated expenditures. That's an estimate of cost for those efforts is what those are. And the 225 is what we were showing as your projected checkbook balance at that point in time. Out of your 600,000 you can build up.
Okay.
So it's not actually money's coming into your system. Your into your system is 150,000 each year right now.
Okay.
Those are anticipated costs to the program, and they're just estimates at this time.
One other question I would have, and it's a question that people have asked me is, why does it take so long? I understand it's the government, and I understand it's the feds, but the question is, it hasn't moved from one desk to another, but so why does it take so long for, it appears to us, a simple procedure of transferring one entity to another, that takes so long?
I don't have a good answer. It's something that just seems to happen more often than not lately with that entity. The sponsorship change, I think it took so long simply because it doesn't happen very often. And it goes all the way to headquarters. why a document hasn't been reviewed that was submitted in May, I can't give you that answer. I would hope that with the activity at the Black Hills Airport and the nature of the change, that it will rise to the top sooner than later. We make an appeal on your behalf all the time to move things forward. It never hurts for them to hear from you. That always helps. And I think your airport board's been pretty good about that in the past.
Thank you.
Mayor, we should introduce our two board members that are here tonight as well too, off the airport board. Jim Seward and Randy Diver are here as well.
Yep.
So, just so you're aware.
Hi, guys. Thank you for coming, and thank you for all the work in the transition. It's been a lot of work, and we appreciate it and keeping that going. And KLJ has also been excellent, having to deal with two governmental entities to try to get the third one to transfer from one to the other. So you haven't had the best time either. So we just want to thank you for all the work and for the vision that we have for the airport. You guys have carried it well. Thank you. Any other questions for Rod? Did you want to say something, Jim? No? No, okay. I just want to make sure.
I thought maybe when we have our first meeting, maybe we can discuss some things.
We can discuss some things, yes. And that will be in 2 weeks?
It'll be the second Thursday in November.
Okay.
At 1 o'clock, it'll be here. We'll have it all posted and everything. But, yep, should have everybody there. Thank you, Jim.
Anything else for Rod?
I think the city's up to this task and we're ready to go. So just turn them loose.
If you've ever got any questions on the program or how things work, Joe has all my contact information. Joe, I did print about a half a dozen small-scale DLPs that I'll make for you, that you can share with whomever.
And we'll have everything posted out there. We are working on the web page for being on our website as well too, so we'll have that all done. And then that information will be out there for everybody to consume.
All right, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
I do want to mention for the students in here that those funds, when everyone buys airplane tickets, there are a lot of fees attached, and so the FAA collects those fees and then spreads them out throughout airports all over the nation. So depending on if you're small or large, you get a little piece of it. So that's where those funds are coming from. All right, thank you. Ordinances and resolutions. We have ordinance 1254, a public hearing. Jana, did you want to discuss that at all first?
No discussion necessary. There's been no changes since committee, so it's as originally discussed in the first reading and now public hearing.
Okay, so at this time I will open the public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak on this ordinance, please go to the podium, state your name for the record. Okay, so hearing no one wishing to speak, I will close the public hearing.
Move ordinance 1254.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bids and proposals. We have a request to accept the proposal from AE2S for the engineering services for the 2018 Jackson Boulevard Street and Utility Improvements have a cost of $304,513, which includes surveying, engineering, drainage, streetscape, concept, lighting, traffic, signal, and bidding. Kyle.
Yeah, I'll be real quick with this since it went through Public Works, but just wanted to give a quick synopsis for those that didn't get to hear that. The design proposal has a few more components on it than we typically have, typically water, sewer, storm sewer, street repair. As you see in the description there, we have lighting that'll be looked at. Streetscaping is going to be very big component to the project. We do have traffic studies in there as well as traffic signal design and also storm drainage analysis. We probably need to do some upsizing on some of our storm sewer along there. The $304,000 in change is about 9 to 9.5% of the estimated cost of the $3.2 million that we think this is going to cost right now. Typically, we see around 7.5 to 8. However, those additional services that I'm talking about push this up to the 9 to 9.5%. That's pretty typical for these additional services we're asking about. For instance, the streetscape was around $60,000 to do that. That's pretty good for a mile, 1.1 miles that we'll be looking at. If you remember down on Main Street, it was probably at least that. I can't remember what the total amount was, but it was several $1,000s for just 3 blocks there too. They get a little spendy, but this one I thought was a good value on that. But overall, we'd like to approve this, get moving on it. We don't have a whole lot of time until 2018 gets around. One of the things that we'll tackle right away, probably within the next 2 weeks, is our first kickoff meeting to discuss the streetscaping. We'll want to get a group together, including some council members, mayor, Joe and I, Black Hills State, and some others to start moving the streetscape concept forward, and then eventually we'll get to some public meetings where we can let the public come and voice their opinions on what they want to see out there, as well as obviously the adjacent business owners and homeowners. But in order to do that, we really want to get this through, approved, and they also have to get out and start doing the topo before that white stuff starts flying too. So I'll open it up. The proposal was in the packet there.